But there was a grade one success for the Moore team. Le Patron goes and wins and did so very impressively. Indiana Dream was really good in the beginner's chase in Ireland, and Stay Away Fay, I thought, had a cracking ding-dong battle with Giovinco. Those two horses came out with a lot of credit. Which of the three impressed you most, Katie Young?
I actually quite liked the way Stay Away Fay really stuck his head down and battled. Giovinco looked the winner, cantering all over him down to between the second last and last. And I thought all he had to do was just give an inch of rain and he quickened on. That just never happened. Stay Away Fay just put his head down and he really ground out a good battle to the line. He's just an out and out stayer, isn't he? I'm sure he'll go to the 3 miler at Cheltenham. That'll probably be his aim for sure. But maybe he might want a bit of juice in the ground. I don't know whether if it came up good now, he'd really be seen to full effect. But yeah, I really like the way he stuck out his head and really battled. That I really like that from a horse.
What's the name of the runner-up?
Giovinco. I can't say it.
I'm just so happy that there's somebody else on the show who balls up pronunciations just as much as me. This is one I can actually get right. Giovinco. Don't worry about it, Katie. I'm doing this the whole time.
I'll get it one day.
I thought Giovinco came out of this with a lot of credit, George. And I think...
Sorry.
No, on you go.
I thought all along that Stay Away Fay struggles to make his own running. And I think that's what got him beat at Aintree. I think that's what nearly got him beat at Exeter. I think it's what could have got him beat on Saturday. Like you look, whenever he goes to the front, he sort of pricks his ears. He went a bit better in front this time. I think it's because he popped out from the start and made it. He wasn't going along with the lead and then trying to take it up and going, oh, where are my mates gone? But I thought he was beatable. And I think if Stephen Mulqueen had his race again, he'd slipstream Stay Away Fay down to the last and try and have one go at him. But in fairness to him, the loose horse was running around all over the place. It's hard to tell from the angle, but it looks a bit like he's tried to get in front of the loose horse and ended up upside Stay Away Fay. That's a battle you're never going to win. Once you're upside Stay Away Fay, you're only helping him go forward and bring his stamina into it. You almost want to try and mug him after the last. And I think the loose horse took that option away from Stephen Mulqueen, where I'd give him the benefit of a doubt. Personally, like I said, I'd have been looking to follow him down to last, not even let him know you're there, and then try and just mug him on the line, basically. Easier said than done, of course. It's a difficult thing to pull off. I think once you end up upside Stay Away Fay 2 out, he's only going to beat you because he stays so well. And I was sort of the opinion that he was going to get beat on Saturday, and then he was going to go to Cheltenham and surprise everyone, because I think the more of a pace he has to run off, the better he's going to be. Like, he stays so well, and especially if it comes up soft at Cheltenham, he will actually come into the reckoning against some of these nice Irish horses. But if Giovinco was going to beat him, it was Saturday, and I think they might have lost that opportunity now. He's still a very nice horse, but he's not going to beat Stay Away Fay at Cheltenham when there's a horse giving him a lead.
Yeah, the Brown advisory is just made for him. I know people have been talking about the National Hunt Chase. First of all, Paul Nicholls has an awful record in the National Hunt Chase. He also has an awful record in the Ultima. Bear that in mind when you're doing your anti-post betting, if Paul's got anything for that. But he's basically already ruled out Stay Away Fay for that race. And he wants to go for the Cotswold Chase. I mean, that's not really a Paul Nicholls thing to do, to take a novice chaser and go, yeah, open company now. So who knows? I presume Brown Advisory is going to be the race he goes for, but maybe if he bolts up there, they tilted something a little bit bigger. Could Nicholls put him in the Gold Cup? Maybe. But look, that will get him ready for Cheltenham. And I would have a slight concern about Hermes Allen taking on the Irish horses. In fact, I just don't like Hermes Allen against the Irish. I'm pretty sure he will win another Grade 1, probably maybe over Christmas or in January. And then he'll take on the Irish horses and get blown to pieces. That's my view on him. I don't think that way about Stay Away Fay. This is a proper staying Grade 1 chaser. He's kind of Jerry Colon 2.0. He will stay all day long, and he is going to lay down he will be a really hard horse to beat in the Brown Advisory.
The thing I'd actually say about Stay Away Fay is I think you want to catch him this year, because I think he's going to get slower and slower. He's by Shantou, and he's got, I'd say, less of a Jerry Colomb Mark 2. I'd almost say he's more of a Don Poli Mark 2. Like, I think he could be very good this year. He could be very, very good this year. But these horses that show so much stamina so early in their career tend to slow down massively as they get older. He's by Shantu out of an Oscar mare, so it all screams stamina. I just think he could be one of these horses that you're looking at, and by 7 or 8, he's running in a national.
See, the way you just talked about Don Poli, it's amazing how the mind works. Loads of things just came flashing into my mind. But the thing that was most of all was Gavin Lynch last week on the Final Furlong podcast, available now on YouTube on the Final Furlong podcast, talking about how you shouldn't get, from a betting perspective, you shouldn't get emotionally attached to these star horses. It's all very well and good, like at the start of the show where we're going, you Team El Fabiolo, Team John Bon. Don't do that, because you need to be fluid. And if you're just waving your scarf around saying Galopin de Champs can never be beaten, then you're not going to properly look at the Gold Cup and go in with an objective view. Now, I would argue the fun thing is to be cheering on these horses. The fun thing is to absolutely turn up to the racecourse with your scarf on and say these machines can't get beaten, and hoop and holler and roar and shout about how Galopin de Champs will never be defeated again. But when you mentioned Don Poli, the amount of money I lost on that horse, dear God. I mean, we're talking I could have been to Barbados 10 times over, but no, he couldn't be beaten. Went horribly wrong. And then when Katie said that thing about him last week, he was never the same after the Gold Cup. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, the problem is Don Poli dropped through the ranks, I think, so quickly that every few weeks you were going, oh, he's down in grade, he'll win this one. You're back in.
Oh, no, that was the
then
thing.
3 weeks later, you do the same thing. That's why you were sending me to Chadsley Corbett point to point to stick 500 quid on him out there. You finally got some of it back.
Don't tell people, George! Multi-accounting is not a thing in the Final Furlong. We would never have people ghost place bets for us. Never at all. No. Yeah. Dark times. But Don Poli did win a Brown advisory.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I think Stay Away Fay will.
Don Poli. I'm not saying he won't win at Cheltenham. I'm just saying, like you said, be careful about getting emotionally attached to him, because he could slow down very quickly. If that makes sense. Yeah,
no, it does. It very much makes sense, and it's a good piece of advice as well. He's 5-1 for the race right now, so I'm not falling over myself to back him at that price. This was a topic of conversation on the tweet machine. Does Giovinco stay 3 miles? I think he does. He won a listed hurdle over 3. And if you can win, as Willie Mullins said last year, with stamina doubts over Galopin de Champs at the time, he said he won a 3 mile hurdle race. It takes way more stamina to win a 3 mile hurdle race than it does a 3 mile chase. He'll stay all day. So same applies to Giovinco. What would be his target going forward, though, Katie?
I'm not too sure. I think he does. He does stay 3 mile, and he's proven that he won the Novice at Aintree. And I think he'll handle any ground. I don't think he's necessarily ground dependent. I just think he was beaten by an out and out stayer on the day. In fair and square, I don't think he necessarily did anything wrong, and I don't think they're going to change plans. I still think they'll stay down the 3 mile route with him. Just so happened to be on the day he got outstayed. They might change tactics, like George said. They might just come with one run, try and leave it as late as possible. But I couldn't see them changing their plans with him and going shorter route. I don't think that would play into his strengths.
I don't think it would either. I'm hoping they go for the Cotto Star with him. It might come too soon. I think he'd be magic there. The only thing is, he will be facing Imagine. And the more I think about Imagine, the more I'm very excited about his prospects over 3 miles in that race. But it's going to be an intriguing one for sure going forward. Indiana Dream. We didn't know a whole lot about him other than Willie likes him. He must really like him now because he's absolutely bolted up. Conditions weren't pretty at all. It was heavy ground, and you could argue he's handled it better than everything else. But this was a really smart performance, Katie.
Yeah, he was actually out the weekend. He was the horse I would take out the weekend on performance-wise. I think out of the whole weekend, he was the only horse I actually seen finish on the bridle in testing conditions like that. I don't think any horse finished the way he did. Look, he obviously has problems. He's looks difficult to train. He looks very delicate. I think he's only raced twice in public in Ireland. So, but he's looks very, very promising. He looks like he's a lot of ability, but he is massive. He is huge. And I think that might be a little bit the reason why he is delicate and they are going to mind him, I'd say. I thought he actually jumped beautifully. He made one mistake at the fourth. I think reports were suggesting that actually it woke him up a little bit and it kind of got him racing after that, and he jumped. He never missed a beat after that. And I think in some horses, if they make a mistake like that, it can actually do the opposite, and it can actually kind of make them a little bit nervous, and they kind of maybe lose their rhythm. It did the opposite of him. He actually got his act together and pinged every fence after that. He wasn't keen. He wasn't too behind the bridle. He was just spot on throughout the race. You could question the strength and depth of the race. I thought St. Felician might have improved off the back of his first run, and improve again over for 2.5 mile. I actually think he regressed a little bit. I don't think he finished out the race at all. I think he jumped a bit left at times, and I think he looked weaker in the finish than he did in his first run. I'd be maybe just keep that in the back of my mind. It would have been interesting to see Hidden Valley Lake, see what he did when he stood up. But I think he was coming under pressure towards the third last. I don't think that's the reason why he fell, but I could see Rachel was kind of giving a slap down the shoulder a couple of times up to third last. And we know he stays very well. And I do think he would have kept going, but I don't think he would have troubled the winner. I think he would have had him covered easily. I do think, however, he'll be hard to place, and I do think the prices of him at Cheltenham is barbaric. I'd be very surprised if he actually turned up in Cheltenham. I think he wants bottomless ground. I think the ground will be, if it comes up too quick in Cheltenham, I don't think they'll run him.
And from the looks of his profile, you couldn't back him to be sound tomorrow morning. No,
he's too big. I don't think if they would take the risk to run him at Cheltenham if the ground wasn't heavy or soft.
Yeah.
I think he's too much ability to be even thinking about running him on good ground. I think they'll save him for heavy ground in Ireland, and I think they'll try and keep him as sound as possible and not give him any chance to injure himself or cause any harm to himself by running him on good ground. That's where I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't turn up in Cheltenham.
You've mentioned the fact that he's quite a big horse now so many times.
Oh, he's massive. Huge.
Look, we've talked about this a few times on the show, but if you're new to the Final Furlong podcast, and we've picked up a few new listeners, welcome to the show, by the way. Just expand on, but actually because they're so big, they're more susceptible to injury. But why?
They've a lot more weight to be carried around on legs that are just as nimble as horses that are smaller in frame. You know, they're just a bit more lanky. There's just a lot more height to be covered, and trying to keep pulled together a big horse like him would be very, very difficult. You know, you've a smaller horse, lighter framed. They're just a bit more nimble. They're not as susceptible to injuries. Like I seen a picture of him, and he is like a giraffe. Like he's huge, like that. But there is, in fairness, there's a lot of horses, big horses, that don't take injuries and they don't get injured. But I just think it depends on the makeup of a horse, and he obviously is quite delicate. He missed nearly a year since his last run, so that kind of speaks enough in itself that they probably are minding him, and I'd say they wouldn't want to be taking any risks going forward with him. I'd say, especially
and they've resisted. Yeah, they've resisted the temptation to enter him for any of the grade ones over Christmas as well. Yeah. He's not in the Faugheen. He's not in the Neville's Hotel grade one either. So clearly it's going to be softly. The betting for Cheltenham is interesting because for the Turners, there's a number of firms going 10s. Most of them go 12. One goes standout 18s. So clearly they have the same thought process as you. Probably won't go to Cheltenham unless it's bottomless ground.
I just couldn't see them running a horse like that on good ground. I just think he's that kind of type of horse that wants bottomless ground. Me, and he just eats up the ground. I just couldn't see them risking running him on good ground, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. What do you think, George? Do you?
I'd just say, if I can add to your point about like big horses and why they don't necessarily stay sound so much anymore, is you sort of go back, you look at these pictures of horses like Arkle and Golden Miller and Cottage Rake. They were massive, but we used to train them. We have very wet winters, and we trained them on grass gallops, and they were able to stay sound. And they were all a very similar sort of horse. It didn't matter that they weren't quick. They were running on soft ground. They'd sort of hunt round for a circuit and a half, and then they'd sprint up the straight. It didn't matter. Now, with the advent of like all-weather gallops and flat horses going jumping, these horses are trained much harder. And being trained on all-weather gallops, like you're much more likely to break a horse down on the all-weather than you ever are on deep sort of turf. But it's usable all year round, whereas your soft turf for however many months of the year isn't usable. The reason we have all-weather gallops is for consistency, not because it's necessarily 100% the best thing for the horses. These small horses have come in more and more because they're able to take how hard we train them on the all-weather gallops. So I see horses all the time, like not all the time, but 2 or 3 a year that look like these horses from the 50s and 60s. They still exist. They're just very unusual these days, and they don't stay sound because they're born to gallop on turf. And we don't train horses on turf really that much anymore because it's not reliable as a way of training your horses when you're trying to run a business. So that for me, that's a huge part of why these big horses don't stand training. Sorry. But a horse like him, yeah, like basically because of that, from what Katie says, if we're talking like 17-2 plus this horse, I wouldn't back him to be sound next week. I couldn't be following them through the season. I need to see him get a run of races, which is fairly unlikely to happen because they're going to be looking after him. From an anti-post perspective, he's absolutely like I wouldn't touch him until the morning of if I was going to back him at all for the race. But I like the performance. I love the performance. Like for a horse that's so inexperienced, they said he landed on one and he didn't back off a yard. Like he's obviously a fairly bloody-minded horse. Like yeah, he's a fairly bloody-minded horse because the fences kept coming and he kept on taking them on. And if you were inclined to back him from an anti-post perspective, he has beaten San Felicien 4 lengths further than Pascal Vega did. So if you're a big fan of silly collateral form, there you go, get steam into him for the Arkle, even though that was 2.5.
We've gone from the common sense approach of listen, you got to be two experts who work with top class racehorses every single day of their lives and who have both worked at various different times for top class trainers and are both still working for top class trainers right now, and saying don't be getting stuck into any anti-post bets for Cheltenham just yet, wouldn't back him till the day of the race. And then George just goes, actually on collateral form he'll beat Pascal Vega in the Arkle. Get stuck in, lads, get stuck in.
I like to wind up. If people don't know I'm joking, they deserve to lose their money.
Oh, if you didn't pick up the sarcasm there, then forget about it. Is Le Patron, though, an Arkle contender? He's 3 from 3 over fences, goes from handicap chases to winning a really nice grade 1 over the weekend and beat 2 nice horses in the prospect. JPR1, again, finding a way to make life very, very difficult for Brendan Powell Jr. Colonel Harry ran a nice race, but Le Patron was the best horse in the race on the day.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be going for the Arkle, to be honest. I don't think he'll get an entry. He'll go back there for the Scilly Isles. He seems to like it at Sandown. And to be honest, he's a 2.5 miler. He got away with it there at the weekend because how bad the ground was. Like that was my one worry. I was like, the heavy ground will bring his stamina into it if he deals with the ground in the first place. If he's able to jump out of that ground like he has done out of good and good to soft the last twice. And he did. He did everything that he did against ordinary horses around Fontwell and relatively ordinary horses around Sandown the time before. And he's taken his form to a whole nother level again. Like I was very pleased with him. He got an excellent ride off David Noonan, is what I'd say. He's managed to go early enough for home, to keep JPR1 napping, and to get Colonel Harry off the bridle for a few strides and just sort of half nick it. Like I wouldn't say he's entirely nicked the race, because I think the horse did idle in front. I think he could have gone on again if something had come to him. But certainly the visual impression it gave you was that Dave Noonan's nicked a Grade 1. But I think if something came to him, he'd have been able to find more. I'm just delighted for David. Like, he comes out and rides out for us sort of at least once a week, maybe every now and again, twice a week. Like, I felt fairly bad for him over the whole David Pipe situation. Like, he was riding when I was riding, and he's a nicer guy you couldn't ask for. Like, always got time for you. And he's ridden very well for a very long time. It's just nice to see him get his day in the sun.
Yeah,